Hello, my name is Chris and welcome to Chef Fix It. So summertime is a season of barbecue and pool parties, and you may be wanting to bring a side dish when you attend one of these. One of my favorites is Emerald Spicy Coleslaw. It goes great with just about anything that might come off the grill, and actually it's very good on its own. So I'm going to demonstrate how to make this recipe with a few of my own modifications. Let's fix it. So anyway, you want 180 grams of this mayonnaise. I do have a scale underneath this bowl, by the way.
Yeah, that massive bowl kind of hides the scale, but it's under there somewhere, I promise.
All right, so that's 160 grams, just a little bit more. Okay, so that's 180 grams. Next is the Dijon mustard, and the recipe calls for a quarter cup of that. Okay, so it says here a teaspoon is 5 grams, and a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, so 5 times 3 is 15, right? And then that's 1 tablespoon, and a quarter cup is 4 tablespoons, so 4 times 15 is 60. So 60 grams of mustard. Yes, teaching math does pay off once in a while.
Practicing those mental math skills. They say if you don't use it, you lose it, so I better keep practicing.
Okay, so that's 60 grams of Dijon mustard. Next is brown sugar, a quarter cup of that.
So you notice how I'm pressing the cup against the top of the container? I'm trying to pack the brown sugar slightly.
Take this bowl off the scale, we don't need that anymore. Now we have 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar.
Now a wise person would not pour the vinegar right over the bowl because if you spill over the top, you're just going to get too much vinegar, but I'm not claiming to be the wisest.
Next, the recipe says 2 tablespoons of buttermilk. Well, I don't have buttermilk, but you know what? I think it's okay if I use regular milk because it's a vinegar-based sauce anyways. So if I use regular milk, I think the vinegar will probably sour it a little bit, so I'll just go with that. You could also use sour cream if you wanted to use that instead.
Well, I hope Chef Emerald isn't too mad about this, but I don't have any buttermilk, so I have to do what I can, try to be resourceful.
So next is 4 teaspoons of celery seeds.
So my teaspoon doesn't fit inside that container, so I'm just kind of dumping out the seeds and trying to eyeball the best I can to get close to 4 teaspoons. I think I was a little under, but really 4 teaspoons is a lot, so I don't feel that bad about it.
Then 1 teaspoon of salt.
Oh, I'm going for the dreaded eyeball method. Let's see how it goes this time. Oh, that looks pretty good. Nice job there, Chef.
1/4 teaspoon black pepper. And his recipe calls for 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne. I like to make it a little spicier, so I put in 1/4 teaspoon.
And what would he say? Another notch.
All right, so that's all the ingredients for the sauce. I'm just going to give it a quick mix, and then we'll move on to adding the vegetables.
It does take a good amount of mixing here, and it's mostly trying to break up the brown sugar and also trying to integrate the celery seeds. Those are hard to stir in.
Okay, we'll give it a quick taste. You always want to be tasting as you're cooking. Yeah, that'll do. Good balance of heat, sweet, and also vinegar. So I'm going to be using a food processor here, but I can do some work to get the vegetables ready to go in. First of all, we have 1 large carrot. You can see here. If you don't have 1 large carrot, you can always use 2 medium carrots, but I think 1 large is a little more fun.
I'm not sure that sounded right, but it's okay. Let's just move on.
So next we have our cabbage. The recipe calls for half a green cabbage, half a red cabbage. Well, that's fine, but I don't want an extra half of each cabbage in my fridge, so I'm just going to use 1 whole red cabbage. And it will be really good that way anyways. So let's see, we'll start off, peel a couple of the outer leaves off from the store. Good idea. Get to the fresh stuff underneath. All right, actually that's looking pretty good. Just a little spot here I want to cut out. Okay, so there's the inside of the cabbage right there. And I just want to cut out the white core. The rest of it I'm going to cut into pieces that'll be big enough to fit in my food processor.
So it looks like I'm struggling a little bit to cut this cabbage. I'm really struggling with the cutting board sliding around. Helpful tip, put a towel under your cutting board if it slides around. I think I'll do that in the future. So one more pass cutting the bigger chunks, and they should all fit in the top of my food processor.
Okay, that may look kind of a mess, but it's ready to go.
It smells like cabbage on this floor.
That's the smell of dead dreams.
I go to the clubs at night and people are like, hey, who's wearing the coleslaw?
So the other ingredient for the food processor is an onion, and I like to do about half a yellow onion. Half a normal size yellow onion anyway. The ones you buy single at the grocery store these days are ridiculous, like they're on steroids. Here's a normal sized onion, I'm going to use half of that.
Yeah, I've noticed that more and more, that produce is just getting larger and larger. And it's really unfortunate because from what I understand, there is less nutrition and more bulk. And also when you have really huge produce, you can't use it all in one portion. So sometimes it'll go to waste.
Now let's go to the food processor. So my food processor blade is reversible and it has smaller holes and larger holes. I'm going to use the small holes for the carrot and the onion and the large holes for the cabbage. So Emerald's recipe also calls for a green bell pepper, but I leave that out because I find honestly it doesn't add anything.
Oh, you're really playing with fire now, chef. Careful.
So I'm just quickly removing the large chunks. Nobody wants a large chunk of raw onion in their coleslaw. Now we'll do the carrot. Okay, now flip the blade over so we can do the cabbage.
So the reason I shred the cabbage to the larger size is that I just like the texture better. I've used a smaller size before and it just seems pulpy and gross.
So I'm confident I can fit all the vegetables in here. I've done this before. Depending on the size of your food processor, you may need to empty out the bowl as you go here. All right, that looks good. Now let's mix it in with the dressing, and then we'll add our Italian parsley. Okay, so we got our bowl of dressing, and we got our vegetables here. Let's dump it in.
Come on, man. In the bowl, chef. In the bowl. So it does take a minute or two to mix all this yumminess together. And you just want to be patient, take your time, use a spatula. And you can tell when it's pretty much all kind of blended together, you won't see any more lumps of cabbage, and the sauce will be nice and integrated throughout.
Okay, so the last ingredient is about a 1/4 cup of chopped parsley, Italian parsley specifically. So I have some here where I already got the larger stems off. I'm just going to trim the smaller stems and then chop it up.
Yeah, this Italian parsley does need a little work, kind of like cilantro. You want to make sure you remove the stems because you don't want the stems in the coleslaw. They don't really add a bad flavor, but the texture, they're very, well, stemmy, so you want to avoid that.
Okay, so I feel like this is going to be about a 1/4 cup once it's chopped up.
Look at that. Fast forward a little bit and I'm suddenly professional. That speed is crazy. Notice I'm using a two-handed technique that helps provide more even pressure on the knife when chopping spices like this. I think it helps a little bit. So you just kind of chop and reorganize and chop and keep going until the bits are small enough.
Yeah, that looks good to me. All right, one final stir.
Well, in hindsight, I guess I could have added the parsley before mixing the cabbage, the carrot, and the onion, and the sauce, but I'm happy how it turned out.
All right, let's give it a taste. Oh yeah, that's awesome. So now that the coleslaw is all done, I'm going to put it in the fridge for at least a few hours so that the flavors all come together and get happy. I actually feel like it serves best the second day. So anyway, I hope you try this recipe at home, share with your friends and loved ones, and thanks for watching.